Dr. mchangizi here, your Science Moment. Today I'm going to talk about political polarization, left, right, and how, of course, at first glance, the fact that there's these kinds of political polarizations seems bad because this leads folks to just follow their politics. I'm part of the right, and I'm going to do whatever beliefs the folks in my community do, independent. I'm not really going to independently judge it. I'm just going to move along with my community as we move into new kinds of issues. And of course, that's at first glance bad. And as we've talked about before in an earlier Science Moment, none of these COVID issues are per se left, right. In fact, lots of libertarians even just went completely, became Karens since the start of this. A lot of my first colleagues that were on my side realizing something is deeply off were communists. Communists understand you can't freeze an economy. It doesn't make any sense. That just wrecks lives and disproportionately lower incomes. And of course, lots of folks on the right, lots of folks, National Review types, became super Karens, and lots of folks that follow me that, when I used to have a Twitter account, that follow me on YouTube and various places, these are people that were their entire lives folks on the left. But nevertheless, in the United States, at least, it came to, over time, for lots of peculiar reasons, due to Trump and lots of, it came to still shift so that much of the left in the United States became pro-COVID cult, I'm calling them, COVID is a disproportionately dangerous virus, and all of the interventions work and are totally justified. So, and more of the right moved towards the freedom sort of position. Now, this isn't the case in other countries. It certainly depends on which country you're in, but the local politics, provincial politics here led to that. Now, on the one hand, you might say that's bad. Like, this is ridiculous, folks. Make up your own mind on these issues. Try to stay aloof so that you don't just shift with the politics of your community. Because if it doesn't have anything to do with left, right per se, then why the mere fact that your right or left community is shifting, why should you shift? On the other hand, as one tries to work through what are the optimal overall designs for a society, such that it is more robust to mass hysteria, well, you have to think about the fact that potentially, could it be that it's actually good to have, and I don't know per se the answer, but I have to say, could it be good, and I'd like trying to work through this theoretically, could it be good that there's, let's say, two predominant political, positions that are typically opposed to each other? And of course you can ask, should there be 3 or 4 or 5? But also, the fact that there's 2 and they're deeply embedded and opposed to one another, and so that when there's some new issue, whichever way one of them moves, the other one's going to move the opposite on that issue just for no good reason. But could that be good? And the reason that it's potentially good, and I don't know for sure that it's good, but a lot of the folks on my side in the United States ended up, and there's lots of folks on the left, lots of libertarians and communists, but still there's a stochastic, there's certainly more folks on the right. And as a libertarian, I'm happy to have anybody on my side in this COVID discussion, because this COVID issue, because these are, it's a serious escalation of the violation of civil rights that we've been dealing with, and I'm happy to have anybody on my side. Now, as it turns out, a lot of the folks on my side, on the right, are potentially on my side merely because they think that the other side is more against them. So like, well, the left is more pro-Karen, so I'm going to be up. Like, but maybe I don't care. Maybe that's good, because I'm just happy to have anybody on my side, even if a lot of them don't take the same kind of tack. They're more likely to be conspiracy theorists. The advantage of potentially having a two-party system where they're each politically polarized, again, and that's sort of not rational, but it could be that having that is actually helps society better survive mass hysterias when they sweep through. The ability for it to sweep all the way across both communities is almost impossible, because as soon as it takes over one a little bit more than the other, then this one suddenly says, okay, we're going to do the opposite of that. And that provides a kind of break, a fire break to mass hysteria. Something that doesn't, a balance of powers, checks and balances between, let's say, multiple branches of government isn't enough, because these are relatively small numbers of individuals who hang out with one another at the same kinds of socialite, parties. It is very easy for these folks to all become group thinking in the very quickly together, because they're all parts of these same sorts of communities, and it's a very small number of people, so you don't get the kind of stochastic variation that you end up with large numbers, and again with the two very opposing communities which have nothing to do with each other, often don't even hang out with one another. So the kinds of questions that we need to ask and the kinds of questions that we're asking at FreeX, the Free Expression Institute, Free Expression Group, FreeX.group, are trying to understand these kinds of dynamics. Federalism, the fact that each state has its own sovereignty in many ways, is, I think, at the end of the day, much more powerful in the United States and giving us some degree of freedom and hope that we have, whereas other countries don't have that kind of thing. Right now, you can go to the South, you can move to the red states, you can move to Florida, and you end up with potentially a lot more freedom. And over the long haul, I think that's going to save the United States. People will move to those places, and the places from which they're moving are going to say, look, we're losing too many people, we're losing income and so forth, and that could potentially push them in the other direction. But at any rate, we have the ability to move to states, and it's that natural stochastic variability from sovereign, semi-sovereign state to semi-sovereign state with their separate cultures and their separate narratives which are allowed to develop, which at the end of the day is provides much more stability and safety against mass hysteria than do checks and balances. And as does, back to the start, having a two-party system, or something that at least culturally ended up to be a two-party system, which at first glance, really sort of an idealist would say, that's just ridiculous, we should stop that. But I'm not sure that it's actually bad structurally for a nation. There's very few things that can stop mass hysteria, and if that's one of them, then so be it. And that was your science moment.